There is a scene in Iron Man 2 that most people have watched 100 times without realizing what they were actually looking at. It is 2010, the Stark Expo, Queens, New York. Whiplash's drones are tearing through the crowd, people are running, and in the middle of all of that chaos, a small boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, stands completely still. He is wearing a toy Iron Man mask. He raises his hand and points a plastic repulsor at a drone 3 times his size. He doesn't run, he stands his ground. Tony Stark lands beside him, blasts the drone, looks down at the kid and says, and this is real dialogue from the film "Nice work, kid." Then he flies away. For years, fans had a theory about who that boy was. It sounded like wishful thinking. It sounded like the kind of connection fans invent because they want the universe to be more connected than it is. And then Tom Holland confirmed it. Today we are going through every crazy Spider-Man theory that might actually be true. And these are not guesses. These are theories backed by confirmed statements, real dialogue, real production decisions, and real evidence hidden inside films you have already seen. By the end of this video, you will understand that Peter Parker's story was never just about a boy who got bitten by a spider. It was planned, and the plan started long before you realized it did. Let's start with that boy in the Iron Man mask, because this is not a fan theory anymore. This is confirmed fact. And the confirmation changes everything about Peter Parker's story in the MCU. In June 2017, during the press tour for Spider-Man: Homecoming, Tom Holland was asked directly about the Iron Man 2 scene. Here is what he said in his exact words to the Huffington Post. "It is Peter Parker. I can confirm that that is Peter Parker. I literally had a conversation with Kevin Feige only 20 minutes ago. Maybe I've just done a big old spoiler, but it's out there now. It's cool. I like the idea that Peter Parker has been in the universe since the beginning." Kevin Feige, the president of Marvel Studios, confirmed it personally 20 minutes before Holland said those words publicly. Director Jon Favreau later backed this up as well. Spider-Man: Homecoming director John Watts rewatched every MCU film before making his movie and said this in interviews. He was watching Iron Man 2 and thinking, what if that little kid at the Stark Expo was Peter Parker? He'd be about the right age. He loves Tony Stark. He lives in Queens, where the Stark Expo was held. The courage, the instinct to stand his ground rather than run, it all fits. And the fan fiction became reality. Now here is why this matters beyond being a cool Easter egg. If Peter Parker was at the Stark Expo in 2010, then Peter Parker was there when Tony Stark saved his life. At 8 or 9 years old, a boy who already worshipped Iron Man watched Iron Man land beside him, blast a drone, look at him and acknowledge him, tell him he did well. Years later, that same boy becomes Spider-Man. And who recruits him? Tony Stark. Who mentors him? Tony Stark. Who dies for the universe while Peter watches? Tony Stark. The entire arc of Peter Parker in the MCU, the hero worship, the desperation to prove himself worthy, the devastation of Endgame, it all makes more sense when you understand that Tony Stark saved Peter Parker's life before Peter Parker ever put on a suit. That relationship didn't start in a Queens apartment in Civil War. It started at the Stark Expo in 2010, when a little boy pointed a plastic hand at a drone, and the man he idolized looked at him and said he'd done well. That is not a coincidence. That is a story that was designed. Now let's go somewhere most people haven't looked. Because the second theory is hiding in the most ordinary place in Peter Parker's world. His school, Midtown School of Science and Technology. The high school in Queens that Peter attends throughout Homecoming and Far From Home. On the surface it looks like any other New York school. Halls, lockers, a gym, a cafeteria. But the evidence inside this school, hidden across multiple films and pieces of confirmed MCU canon, points to something much bigger. The theory is this: Midtown School of Science and Technology is or was a S.H.I.E.L.D.-funded magnet school. A pipeline for gifted teenagers that S.H.I.E.L.D. built to identify, develop, and eventually recruit the next generation of operatives, scientists, and agents. And once you see the evidence, you cannot unsee it. Start with the principal. Principal Morita, who runs Midtown in Homecoming and Far From Home, is confirmed in MCU canon to be the grandson of Jim Morita. If that name sounds familiar, it should. Jim Morita was one of the Howling Commandos, the elite unit that fought alongside Steve Rogers in World War II. After the war, Jim Morita worked with the SSR, the organization that became S.H.I.E.L.D. He was a close ally of Peggy Carter, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s founder. The grandson of a founding-era S.H.I.E.L.D. operative is the principal of Peter Parker's school. That is not a coincidence. That is a detail the writers put there deliberately. Then look at the school itself. It was founded in 1962, roughly a decade after S.H.I.E.L.D. was established. It is tuition-free or heavily subsidized, meaning gifted students from any background can attend regardless of income. Peter Parker and Aunt May, who are not wealthy, have no problem affording it. The school has a chemistry lab advanced enough that Peter uses it to synthesize military-grade synthetic web fluid. It has a robotics team, an academic decathlon team that competes at national level, a student news broadcast. Every single student we ever see given any screen time is exceptional in some specific field. There is a mural on the wall of Midtown that includes Howard Stark, a S.H.I.E.L.D. founder, and Abraham Erskine, the man who created Captain America. These are not random historical figures to put on a school mural. These are the founding architects of the super soldier and weapons development programs that S.H.I.E.L.D. was built around. And then there is the scene in Far From Home that makes this theory click into place. Nick Fury, or the Skrull posing as Nick Fury, is able to completely reroute Midtown's pre-planned European field trip. He doesn't go through the school board or the city or the parents, he just does it. The resources are available. The authorization goes through without resistance, as if S.H.I.E.L.D. has standing access to Midtown's administrative systems. Because it built them, the theory is that S.H.I.E.L.D. created Midtown to do what it could never openly do: identify brilliant young people from all backgrounds before they were recruited by anyone else, give them the best resources, develop their skills, and then, when the time was right, bring the best of them into the fold. Peter Parker, a genius-level scientist who synthesizes his own equipment, maintains a secret identity under pressure, and shows extraordinary composure in crisis situations, is exactly the kind of person S.H.I.E.L.D. would have designed a school to produce. He just got bitten by a spider first. This next theory is the one with the most confirmed emotional weight behind it, because it's not just a theory about what happened in a movie. It's a theory that was confirmed by the actor himself as the reason he agreed to come back. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, and the moment in No Way Home that broke the internet. To understand this fully, you need to go back to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, released in 2014. Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker's girlfriend, played by Emma Stone, falls from the top of a clock tower during the final battle. Peter shoots a web and catches her, but the sudden stop is too violent and the web snaps her neck. She dies in his arms. It is one of the most devastating moments in superhero film history. And because The Amazing Spider-Man 3 was never made, Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker never got resolution. He was left permanently with that failure. That image. That moment where he was fast enough, strong enough, close enough, and still not enough. 7 years later, No Way Home brought Garfield back. And the first scene the creative team pitched him, before a script existed, before anything was finalized, was a single moment. Garfield confirmed this himself in an interview with Variety. Here are his words. "My Spider-Man got to save his younger brother's romantic relationship, potentially, and to heal the most traumatic moment of his own life through doing it for his younger brother, making sure that he didn't have the same fate. There's something cosmically beautiful about that." He called it cosmically beautiful. In the film's final battle at the Statue of Liberty, MJ falls from the scaffolding. Tom Holland's Peter cannot reach her in time. And Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, this grieving, broken version of Peter who spent years unable to forgive himself, dives and catches her. Safely. Completely. And then holds her and cries, and she looks at him and asks if he's okay. She doesn't know why he's crying. She just fell from a building and she's asking him if he's okay. The scene was originally scored with a full choir. Tom Rothman, the chairman of Sony Motion Pictures, watched the playback and stopped it. He said they were selling themselves short. The choir was removed. The scene was rebuilt entirely on sound design and performance. Just Andrew Garfield's face, just that catch, just silence. Zendaya, who played MJ, described this moment in interviews. Andrew's Peter Parker gets to help save someone else's love, which is huge for him because it's something he must deal with every single day. This is not a fan theory about something hidden in the background. This is a theory that was built into the film intentionally, confirmed by the actor, confirmed by the director, confirmed by the emotional architecture of the scene itself. The writers knew exactly what they were doing. They gave a version of Spider-Man the moment his universe was never able to give him. A second chance at the fall, and this time he didn't let go. The fourth theory is the one that MCU fans have been arguing about since December 2021. And with Spider-Man, Brand New Day releasing on July 31st, 2026, the answer is coming very soon. After the final battle in No Way Home, Eddie Brock was sent back to his universe by Doctor Strange's reverse spell. But there was a complication. A small trace of the Venom symbiote was left behind in the MCU. You can see it in the film's mid-credits scene, a tiny piece of black liquid, sitting on the bar where Eddie had been sitting just moments before. It is still there in the MCU, on Earth 616. And it has never been addressed. Not in any film, not in any Disney Plus series. Not in a single piece of official MCU content since December 2021. Now, the theory is that this is not an accident. That Marvel and Sony left that symbiote fragment behind deliberately as a setup for a future storyline. And with Brand New Day coming, confirmed to be releasing 2 months before Avengers Doomsday, the theory says Peter Parker is going to bond with the Venom symbiote in that film and arrive at Doomsday changed. Here is the evidence that makes this more than wishful thinking. Tom Holland has spoken publicly about reading fan theories and wanting Brand New Day to be for the fans. He confirmed this in interviews in late 2024 and 2025. He has been actively searching online to find what storylines and characters the audience wants most. And the black suit Spider-Man, a visual that represents Peter's darkest, most powerful, most psychologically complex chapter, is the single most requested element in the entire history of his run. The mid-credit scene was not an accident. No Way Home did not have accidental mid-credit scenes. Every frame of that film was deliberate. The symbiote was placed there with intention. And Peter Parker, alone, identity erased, starting from zero with a handmade suit in a small apartment, is in exactly the right psychological state for a black suit arc to begin. Grief, isolation, the need to feel powerful when everything has been taken from you. That is what the symbiote finds. That is always what the symbiote finds. And now the final theory, the one that ties everything together, the one that only makes sense when you look at the full arc from 2010 to now. The theory is this: Tony Stark didn't just mentor Peter Parker. Tony Stark created Spider-Man. Not the powers, not the spider bite, but the hero, the identity. The reason Peter keeps going even when everything is taken from him. A boy in Queens stands up to a drone at the Stark Expo. Iron Man saves him and tells him he did well. That moment plants something, a belief that ordinary people can be brave, that putting yourself between danger and someone helpless is what you're supposed to do. That boy grows up with that belief. He gets bitten by a spider, he gets powers. And the first thing he does with those powers, the very first thing, is try to be what he saw at the Stark Expo, someone who doesn't run. Tony Stark then finds him, recruits him, builds him a suit, and in Homecoming, when Peter tries to do too much too fast, Tony takes the suit away. And Peter, without the suit, still saves people, with nothing, because Tony Stark didn't give him the heroism, he already had it. Tony just gave him the tools. And then Tony dies. He says the 4 words, "I am Iron Man," and snaps the gauntlet and saves the universe. Half the universe that had disappeared, including Peter Parker. Peter watches Tony die in Endgame, he holds his hand, he says, "Mr. Stark," and Tony doesn't respond. And at the end of No Way Home, Peter Parker is alone for the first time. No Tony, no SHIELD, no Avengers, no MJ, no Ned, no identity. He is in a small apartment in New York with a homemade suit, web shooters he built himself, and nothing else. Look at that image. A genius kid in Queens building his own equipment with no backup and no recognition, protecting the city because it is the right thing to do. That is not just Spider-Man, that is Peter Parker returning to who he was before any of this, before the Avengers, before the suits, before the recognition. He is back to the beginning, the boy at the Stark Expo before Tony ever looked at him. Brave, alone, standing his ground anyway. Tony Stark saved that boy in 2010. That boy spent 15 years becoming the hero Tony believed he already was. And now, in 2026, with brand new day and Avengers, Doomsday coming, Peter Parker is about to face his greatest test with nothing but what was always inside him. That is not a coincidence. That is the most carefully constructed character arc in the history of superhero cinema. And it started with a plastic hand raised at a drone in Queens in 2010. 5 theories, every single one of them grounded in confirmed statements, real dialogue, real production decisions, and evidence you can go back and verify yourself. So which one do you believe? Was Peter Parker always meant to be Tony's legacy? Is the symbiote coming in brand new day? Was his school a SHIELD operation the whole time? Drop your answer in the comments right now. I read every single one, and the best theories you bring down there will go straight into part 2. If this video showed you something in Peter Parker's story that you had not seen before, subscribe. That is what this channel is for. Every week, we go back into the stories you love and find the thread underneath the thread. I'll see you in the next one.